I like Israel. I want to be an Israeli citizen but I dislike very much everything being done by Israeli governments for generations. Every time I have more and more against what my government is doing, first of all to ourselves, Israelis, and then also to Palestinians. Because they kill Palestinians, but they made our citizens killers and very, very bad characters. I am of those ones that grew in Israel, and I spent my first 40 years while eating and swallowing. You see here, everything that I was given to swallow without having any questions, brought by my parents, my teachers, and other people of the same age. The holy generation of 48. 82, I was finishing being sent to Mexico to work in educating young Jews towards the mission to come to Israel to be some kind of Israeli citizens. In June 82, as probably part of you know, another war, another holy war. Always when we speak about wars of Israel, they all are very holy war because of the chosen nations, you know. We are not just a nation. Jews are the chosen nation. So another war was to begin, the Lebanon War. We were invited by the Israeli ambassador in Mexico, a general, to inform us about this war, and he was very frustrated as a general that he was not invited to take part in this war. But he told us that they managed somehow. Even on my way back home through Europe, I was asking ambassadors whether they really indeed managed without me such a hero in this war, because I was very used that when there is war, I must be there in Israel. Only when I arrived home, I began to ask questions. What is this war about? And I was told that Palestinians, the bad ones, always Palestinians are bad. Don't you forget, please. The Palestinians attacked Israeli diplomat named Argov in London and wounded him very hard. The Israeli reaction was by the Israeli Minister of Defense, the very honorable George W. Sharon, that attacked Lebanon, conquered Lebanon, and even conquered Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. In history, 18 years is not very much. For people's life, 18 years is this time 365 days every year. And this is a time, 18 years, while Lebanon was conquered. And we killed there and were killed, and butchered and were butchered. And then, one nice day, we just went out. Nothing achieving, but one big sorrow, exactly like in all the other wars. Nothing good of a very cruel war that killed many, many human beings in both sides. and you must forgive me, because generally Israelis do not take Palestinians as just human beings. I'm a little bit extraordinary in this. I believe that Palestinians, exactly like me and like at least the most part of you that seen to me now, are just human beings. Every one of them have family, mothers, fathers, and so on. And to kill them, it's a catastrophe, exactly like it is a catastrophe when one of our holy brothers, the Jews, are killed. It's very special to say it, but this is. At those years, in the middle of the 80s, I decided that I am grown up enough already to begin studies in university. I began to study history of the nation of Israel and history of the Middle East. In the second year, I was suggested by the department to begin already the second title, and I did this. And in the end of the third year, when I almost finished hearing all of the courses, my elder daughter was killed in the army by an accident, and I had to stay a little bit away from the academical business. I am telling it because later on, 8 years later, when I thought that maybe it's already possible to try to complete the master studies, I decided to make a micro-historical thesis. I thought that after 49 years, it's time already to get into details about the very forming war of Israel of ever, the war of 48. And another decision that I had, and I'm very sad and ashamed to tell you, that until then, nothing like this was done. And as far as I know, and you know that in academia, you never say 100%, you just say as far as I know. And as far as I know, so far, nothing like this is being done until this very moment. And I am saying this about personal stories, what we call in academia oral history, personal stories of the Jewish heroes, fighters of 48, and also, again, we are back, not to believe, to Palestinians. Also stories of Palestinians that people don't believe, but they were part of this war. Because always, since then until this very day, we are always making peace between one crazy part of the leading party in Israel with another less crazy part of the same party. This is kind of a peace we are making there. Another kind of a peace is something about peace between two parties, and so on. We already made peace with USA also, so there is no more peace with USA. But we never spoke with Palestinians seriously about peace, although we always make war against them. I look after Palestinians that remained in Palestine after the war, because not as I was told as a child, it didn't happen like all of the Palestinians escaped from Palestine in this war. This is what people told us, but this is not the truth. What happened was that those Palestinians that were not killed in that war just were pushed away from the country. In this war, which was very cruel and was a war of existence of both sides, Israel did not only win in this war. After winning, and I am repeating saying after winning and not while the war, Israel made everything possible to push away most of the Palestinians from the country. I just want to remind that this happened 3 years only after the Second World War finished, while there was done an ethnic cleansing to the Jews by others. In the first time that Israel was a state and officially could make decisions, one of the very first decisions was to make an ethnic cleansing to others, in this case the Palestinians. 553 villages were demolished. All of the men of Tantura were taken to the cemetery of the village, and they put them in lines, and they ordered them to begin digging. And every line that finished digging just was shot and fell down to the holes, which I guess reminds at least a few of you something that had to do with Germans. 3 years after the end of the Second World War. I want you to know it's not a great pleasure for me to tell you all of this. It's a great pain until this very day, although it takes already a few good years. I am not yet very used to what I myself found in this research. Another interview that I had was with a night guard, a Jewish living in Zichron Yaakov, very close to Tantura. He was taken by the soldiers as a guide to take the Company A to attack Tantura from the north. And he told me that after the battle, he was responsible to bury the bodies of the Palestinians in Tantura. Of course, hearing this, I immediately asked him, how many did you bury? And he told me, I counted 180, 200, 230 and stopped. He didn't say finished, stopped. 2 years later, he was asked by people who made a film about the county of that place for 50 years of independence of Israel. And of course, they had to take Tantura as something that symbolizes the heroism of that chosen nation and chosen army, pure army. And they began to take all kinds of interviews with people, but every time they came closer to Tantura, they stopped because it began to smell very bad. But in one rough piece of audio cassette that I found in one of the archives there in the area, that man answered on the same question 270 to 280, which means not 20 and not 25, much, much more. And I know from other interviews that they were killed in all kinds of forms, in the trees, behind the trees, in the seashore, everywhere. And this make a kind of explanation why 3 weeks later they received that order. Treat to bury fast as possible the bodies in order to prevent high disease, which didn't say very much, being just this order without the personal evidences. I am attacked, among other things, that how comes that I, based on personal stories, I am telling about a massacre. And it's impossible to be based on personal stories, and personal stories and oral history as a whole is not to be used in researches about 48 war? My answer to this is very simple. Those who will make researches about 48, I hope it will happen once, will have to explain very carefully why, if they won't use personal stories, we are talking about what we call contemporary history. Those who will make those researches without personal stories will have to explain this, and not the opposite. I finished the thesis in March 98. I received in August or September 97 from 100, which is not very bad. And then dedicated another year to complete the seminars and to finish with all of the duties of the master. And then I was announced that I finished everything in excellent grade B, and that they are going to take this thesis to put it in the kind of a competition of the faculty for receiving prize, which I never asked, but thank you. But at the same time, the Noble University of Haifa sent a letter, a routine letter, in what we call in spread NATO to everywhere, to universities and to newspapers and so on, with list of students who finish their masters with the subjects of the masters also, with the thesis. And a friend of me who learned with me in courses with, I don't know if anyone knows, Ilan Pape, one of the very best Palestinologists in the world. He learned courses with me, and he knew that I came back to the university. He was at the time already the manager of Ma'ariv in Haifa, the second big newspaper in Israel. And he wanted to ask me questions about the thesis, because in the last time he saw me, when he knew that I'm back in the university and asked questions, I already was working of this thesis of massacre, and I wanted less than anything else newspapers to get inside. Anyway, he was very suspicious because I answered him about all kinds of things, about the weather, and people are very nice here and so on. And he was working in the intelligence in the army, and he became very suspicious. And I also didn't want to answer him when he asked me after receiving the letter. So he just went to the university and read the thesis and received what we call in Hebrew, in Arabic, harara. Harara is fever. He prepared, although I asked him not to do it yet because I wanted to prepare an article for the Journal of Palestine Studies, edited in Washington, like it is a custom in such cases. But he wanted to make his article, and he did it, and this appeared in that Ma'ariv in one of the weekends of January 2000. A big noise was made because of this, and many televisions from the whole world, radios and so on, came. And 5 days later, I found myself hospitalized in the Hillel Yaffe hospital in Hadera because of a brain stroke that attacked my 3 foreign languages, English, Spanish, and Arabic. You probably can feel that I'm not very, very strong in English. It's nothing like I'm able to be proud about. Anyway, I'm telling you this because a few months later, I was asked to apologize about this thesis, and those heroes of the Alexandroni Brigade was demanding me to apologize, or if not, they are going to make a court law against me, telling that I am a liar, talking about libel and so on. At that moment, I turned to the famous University of Haifa. And then the rector, who was, by the way, a lecturer of me, with 3 courses of only 95 and 96 in the second also. And I just asked him why and if the University of Haifa, the Noble University of Haifa, does not enter to this business. And then he answered me that the university has only academical responsibility and nothing juridically. And then I asked him, just tell me if in a case I made this thesis out in the street, didn't I have supervisor from the university that by chance was also the chairman of the department, a professor? Or did not 3 professors check this thesis? And besides, I just asked him personally because we were good friends until then. Don't you believe me? Do you take me like a liar suddenly because until this moment you never told me anything like this? I am not your teacher now, was the answer. I am your rector. In the first time that Israel was a state and officially could make decisions, one of the very first decisions was to make an ethnic cleansing to others. In this case, the Palestinians. 553 villages were demolished. Most of those villages never fought against Israel. I don't know how many of you heard once that people without land are looking for a land without people. This map is full with not very much, only around 800 and something villages, Palestinian villages and cities, exactly of that empty land that people without land looked for. Professor Salman Abu Sita, the one who made this map, probably does not understand anything in geographic and in historic of this country. Otherwise, how comes that he certainly invent so many villages? When I looked after Palestinians that were left in the country, I asked people not very far from the area of Haifa, the city I was born, of people of 48 from villages like Kafren, Subaren, Sindiana, Shuf, Mazar, Tira, Tantura, Jabba, Ijzim, and Razal, Kufr Lam, Sarfand, etc. Many, more than 40 villages, all of them are no more existing. And by the way, I must give you that example of this exact area of the coastal area of between Haifa and at that time Tel Aviv, Yafo. In this area exactly, there were living at those times 64 villages. From these 64, only 2 remained after this war. Only 4 of all of those 64 fought against Israel, as far as we know. All the other didn't fight, and nevertheless, all of the people were pushed away, and all of the villages were destroyed. The other 2 remaining, Jisr Zarqa and Faradis, are 2 villages very close to 3 settlements of Israel that said that they want these people to be their workers. Another reason, which probably you won't find in any book, is that Ben-Gurion, the holy founder of Israel, that was Prime Minister and Minister of Defense, first of Israel, decided to take these 2 villages as a kind of example to tell everyone, well, you see that these 2 villages raised white flag in the first moment and we didn't touch them. And others fought against us, and what choice did we have? And this is, I'm very ashamed to say, a great, great lie. Most of all of the villages never fought, and nevertheless they don't exist any longer. Very soon after I began to look after the Palestinians, I paid attention that whenever I mentioned the name of the village, Tantura, the reaction was not as always. And therefore, I decided to ask one of those old people of 48 what it is about, Shul Khurafiyya in Arabic. And the answer was Majjara Kbiri, which means big massacre. Beginning of that moment, I could not, as an historian, to move away from this village Tantura, knowing that probably something very, very extraordinary happened there. And you probably know that the moment an historian take any evidence relevant to his research and put him away because of any reason like you are a Jew, it may make a kind of a damage to your holy nation and so on, that moment you stop being historian, you begin to be storytellers, or a liar, or who knows what. But this moment, you stop being an historian. And I looked after more and more Palestinians, knowing that I have to find everyone that is possible to tell me something about what happened in Tantura, Israelis and Palestinians. And from the 135 people that I interviewed for this research, 65 are those concerning Tantura, half Jews, half Palestinians. All of the theses could be different totally without those personal stories. I just give you one example of one of the documents I found in the Israeli archive of the Israeli army. There is there one order of the commander of the area of Haifa, not very far from Tantura, ordering the commander of Tantura treat fast to bury all those who died in Tantura in order to prevent high disease. And this was about almost 3 weeks after the battle. Talking about battle, it wasn't such a great battle. Tantura had only a few night guards, a few hundred meters far from the village. And the moment that the line of those guards was broken, they ran away back to the village, telling the people it's all finished, just go out, raise hands. When I asked people how many died in Tantura from the Palestinians, I was told about 15 to 20. But one of the soldiers that I interviewed told me that after conquering the village, all of the village was taken to the seashore, and they put them men aside and women and children in the other side. And the commander of the company of that soldier was going among those men of Tantura, asking them personally, "Where is your rifle?" The moment the one answered, "I have no rifle," he was directly shot in his head. Those who said, "My rifle is somewhere hidden next to my house," were taken, knotted to their houses, and the rifle went out and the one did not. The highest officer that I interviewed was a general named Shlomo Ambar. He told me at the very beginning of the interview, when I saw what my friends, Israeli soldiers, doing in Tantura cemetery, I couldn't bear it any longer and I stayed away from the place. Because he was not directly a commander of fighters at that battle, he just was responsible to get away with all kinds of obstacles that disturb people to come closer. Maybe he had therefore a better conscience to speak about what happened, and he didn't speak very much, but with very, very small details, it was quite too much already. When I asked him, "What are you talking about?" Talking about the cemetery, he told me, "Never mind, go ahead to Jabba, Ijzim and Razal, the other villages that I researched." And then I wanted to know, because it was the beginning of the interview, tell me what happened there. And he again refused, but a minute later he was saying between me and him something like, "But you know, even the Germans did not kill military prisoners that were alive." And then I asked him, "What are Germans doing here? We are talking about Tantura, Jabba, Ijzim and Razal," and he did not react. But at those very days, I was also interviewing Palestinians that told me that in a certain minute, all of the men of Tantura were taken to the cemetery of the village, and they put them in lines, and they ordered them to begin digging